Welcome back to another Millennial Monday. It's the new year. Happy 2021. Let's go ahead and get dressed for the new year. Now, where did I put that thing? Found it. Found it. Magical wand. All right, let's give this a go. Ready? Bibbidi, bobbidi, boop. Much better. Much better. I'm all ready for the new year now. Now, it may be the new year, but that doesn't necessarily mean a magic wand is going to fix everything in our lives. But I do have some books for you today to bring a little bit of joy into your life. So, today on Millennial Monday, I am going to be bringing you one Batman Gilded Age mystery, one Russian fairy tale fantasy, and one Jane Austen time-traveling novel. So sit back and enjoy this episode of Millennial Monday. I love Jane Austen. I love Jane Austen. I have read all the books. I also have every Jane Austen adaptation that's ever been made. BBC Jane Austen. 1970s BBC Jane Austen. 1940s Jane Austen, where they had no money for costumes, so they recycled the costumes from Gone with the Wind. Yes, Pride and Prejudice and Hoop Skirts, the horror. Zombie Jane Austen. Bollywood Jane Austen. Also, side note, I'm going to cut in here for just like 1 second. If you want to watch the new Emma, the library does own a copy of this for you to check out. And I will say that this version of Emma, I like this better than a lot of the other ones out there, and I definitely like it better than the Gwyneth Paltrow version. So Jane Austen time traveling is nothing new. We of course have the Lost in Austen series from BBC. We also have had several time traveling Jane Austen books as well. Side note, the Jane Austen project is actually really good. But even though we've had tons of Jane Austen time traveling books and TV shows, we've never had a book where Jane Austen time travels herself. It's always the rabid fan who falls back into time and learns pretty quickly that she doesn't want to be there because no one bathes. Austen, the author, the real person, had a very interesting life that wasn't like other women of her time. She never got married, she never had kids, and she also never found out how important her books would be to the world. Her books would create a devotion of followers through the centuries, through the years. I mean, just look at that loser. Yeah, that's me from the Jane Austen Festival. In Jane in Love by Rachel Gibney, we get a story about what it would be like if Jane Austen traveled to the future. Jane Austen is living in Bath and she is 28 years old in the 1800s, and a witch gives her the chance to change her destiny, to find her soulmate. And Jane Austen decides that she wants this spell and she does want to find her soulmate. And she ends up traveling through space and time to the future, to present day. And she appears out of thin air and a production set of Northanger Abbey that is happening. Sophia Whitworth is an aging starlet who is on the set of Northanger Abbey who sees Jane Austen appear out of thin air, and she thinks she's hallucinating. Sophia is an aging starlet who is really only doing this movie because she's trying to win her husband back. They've been recently separated, and he is the director of this film. When Jane appears out of thin air to Sophia, she thinks that she is absolutely hallucinating. But it becomes apparent pretty quick that Jane Austen might just be the real deal. And Sophia and Jane start up a tentative friendship and also try to figure out why Jane is there in the first place. The love spell starts to make a little bit more sense when Jane meets Sophia's brother, Fred. But then Jane's books start disappearing off the shelf. The longer she stays in the future, the fewer and fewer books she's actually written exist. If you are a die-hard Jane Austen fan, this is your next book. If you like time-traveling books, this is also going to be your jam. I really like time-traveling novels just in general because I think it's like reading about the what if. Like, what if could happen? Well, if this person travels back in time, like what would happen? How would history change? And time-traveling novels have always been something that really interests me. This was a very fun, fast read. It is like 400 pages, but it didn't feel like 400 pages when I was reading it. So, if you are looking for your next Regency time-traveling novel fix, look no further than Jane in Love.
Extra, extra, read all about it. Robin Hood strikes again. The famed diamonds of the mermaid debutante have been stolen, estimated at over $500,000. Where will Robin Hood strike next, and who will he steal from?
I really love a good mystery. I also really love Gilded Age New York City. And Deception by Gaslight by Kate Belly delivers on both those fronts. In the late 1800s, the Astor 400 ruled New York City. The money they had was insane, and the parties they threw were legendary. There were no stuffy English ballrooms here. The Americans knew how to party. The Astor 400 was a group of people that made up the echelons of society. They were in kin like the ton of London's ballrooms. And in the late 1800s, they threw lavish parties, and that is where our story begins. A mysterious figure named Robin Hood who steals from the rich and gives to the poor. Guinevere is a female news reporter just trying to catch a break in a man's world. She works for the Globe, but all they really want her to cover is parties and flower shows. She knows that if someone would just give her a break, she could make it, and she could be a great news reporter. So she decides to figure out the identity of Robin Hood. She is going to figure out and unmask who this mysterious gentleman is who has been stealing from the rich and giving to the poor and taking care of New York City's most vulnerable. But then Guinevere finds a dead body in 5 Points, and a rich hostess is murdered in her own home. And Guinevere starts to uncover a sinister plot that endangers her own life. If this is starting to sound like a Batman movie, you would be right. I'm pretty sure that the author knew exactly what they were doing. They even called it a Gilded Gotham mystery. So when Guinevere finds Daniel in the 5 Points, and she's been stalking him for a while, you know that there is something going on. Daniel is a millionaire, and he knows more about the dark, seedy underbelly of New York City than anyone else. And if the setup of this book sounds too familiar to you, don't worry. There are lots of twists and turns here that will have you guessing to the very end. I really liked Guinevere and Daniel as they went through New York City to try to uncover the sinister plot. And it really did have me guessing to the very end about who was behind it all and what was going on. There's lots of action and adventure here. So this book is really good for anyone who likes Sherlock Holmes stories, anyone who likes a really good mystery, or anyone who's just really obsessed with the Gilded Age. I recommend Deception by Gaslight by Kate Belly. And welcome back to America's Next Top Novel, where we will be crowning America's next favorite book. I know I'm an older novel in this industry, and the newer, shinier novels catch people's attention, but I really feel like I have something to offer. My content is top-notch. My prose are the best out of everyone's, and I deserve to be America's next top novel. Spinning Silver and Deadly Education. You are in the bottom 2 this week. Deadly Education, you are a newer, shinier novel that the judges feel like has a lot of potential. But we worry. Your prose and your character development, we don't feel like it's quite up to par for America's next top novel. Spinning Silver, you're an older novel. We do worry about your longevity in this industry, but you're consistent and unique. I have only one picture in my hands, and that novel will go on in hopes of becoming America's next top novel. Spinning Silver. Whenever somebody asks me for a fantasy novel, the first question I ask them is, have you read Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik? 2018, when this book came out, it was a force of nature. It was named one of the best books of the year by Time, NPR, Tor.com, the New York Public Library, Pop Sugar, Vox, Vulture, Paste, Bustle, and the Library Journal. This book was amazing. This story is about three women who are bound by societal limitations, heartache, and love. Miriam is the daughter of a Jewish moneylender. Her father, though, is not so good at his job. He's too soft-hearted to collect from the townsfolk. Miriam, though, one winter, when her mother is dying, decides that she is going to take on the role of the moneylender in the family. She hardens her heart and goes to collect the debt from the townsfolk. She starts to realize that she has a penance for turning silver into gold. Her almost magical ability to turn silver into gold catches the eye of the Stark King, a winter fairy who presides over a land of snow. He puts a test to her, to turn all of his coffins of silver into gold and become his queen. This is also the story of Wanda, alone and abused by her father after her mother dies. Wanda works herself to the bones and hopes that her father does not sell her in marriage to a husband that she doesn't want. This is also the story of Irina, daughter of a duke, ugly and little. Her father has never paid much attention to her. Her mother had Stark fairy blood running through her veins and was very beautiful, but Irina has none of that. But her father becomes in possession of Stark jewels, and when they are laid upon Irina's neck, she becomes the most unforgettable woman in the world. And her father decides to carve a new destiny for her. A Tsar king possessed by a demon, a snow fairy bent on turning the entire world into ice and snow, and three girls tangled up in magic create the most amazing fairy tale that will spark your imagination. I absolutely love Spinning Silver by Naomi Novik. I recommend this to everyone, especially if they are looking for a fantasy. This is one of the best books that came out in 2018, but for me, it's not just that it is an original story that is really, really good. It is also that the prose in this book are absolutely beautiful. The Tsar is a black sorcerer. He's possessed by a demon of flame that wants to devour me. I laughed. I couldn't help it. It wasn't mirth, it was bitterness. So, the fairy Silver brought you a monster of fire for a husband, and me a monster of ice. We should put them in a room together and let them make us both widows. I mean, how fantastic is that? And that is just the kind of prose that you will find through this entire book as you are reading it. This, for me, even though it is a few years old, is still a 5 out of 5 star reads, and it is perfect for the winter holidays. It is perfect for January. Please check out Spinning Silver. And that's going to be it for another Millennial Monday. We hope that you guys are starting to think about your reading challenges for the new year. If you don't know about the reading challenges that are on Goodreads, you can set up how many books you want to try to read for the year. In 2021, I have determined that I am going to try to read 200 books for the year. We'll see how I go about that. And of course, no matter what you set your reading challenge at this year, just know that the Scott County Public Library is here for you. We have books on Hoopla and on Overdrive. We also, of course, if you want a physical book, we do have our card catalog online at scottpublib.org. And you can go on there and see what books we have available in the library. So everyone have a wonderful new year, and now let's dance party out of here.